What's that? Okay.
Okay, but we'll go through.
So there's nothing for me to,
We'll just put it on the record.
You're up, Commissioner.
All right, we're back in session. We had an invitation to bid on a building for the fairgrounds. We'll go ahead, Shanda, and turn the time over to you.
Perfect, Commissioner. So we put this out for invitation to bid, and we have received no bids back through Bonfire. So we did, in putting this out to bid and giving everybody the opportunity to participate publicly for a steel structure down at the Bannock County Fairgrounds in Downey, receiving none back does open us up to move forward however the board sees fit. I would like permission to work with the Fair Board and Dan and to find a path, as the board is not meeting for the next couple weeks, to be able to move forward in the most. We are still trying to, we talked about schedule, and we do want to make sure the board made it clear that they wanted this project done correctly, most efficiently with the funds that we had, remaining within budget. So we do want to make sure that we have got a schedule nailed down that allows the board to move forward with their plans while still improving the structure facility. And so we would just like to be able to work with our facilities director and the board to be able to find a path. I do feel that the board still would like the steel structure, if that is the case. So then we would just contact a vendor directly and talk about getting an invoice for that and what a delivery schedule might be for those, and to start that in the works, if that is okay by the board.
Okay. Questions, comments?
I believe Commissioner Crowder is going to visit one next week, a potential structure.
This is something different.
Oh, it's something different?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a bigger
Okay.
project. I
Never
was down
mind.
there last week looking at this.
Okay, scratch that then.
And I'll just say that this isn't the first time that this has happened. Up at the wellness complex, our sewer project ended up the same way. That sewer project should be finished within this month. So this just gives us an avenue that we don't have to go out for bids. We can talk to individuals, and it isn't really a bad deal. So, but with that, I'd ask for a motion to let them move forward in a manner that we have in the past, and then all that will still come before the board.
Correct.
At a later time.
Yep, any contracts, invoices, all of that would still come before the board. Just the discussions, right, would happen outside, right, with the Fair Board and with the facilities director, and then they bring their proposal back to us.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion then that we authorize the Fair Board and Shanda and our facilities manager to move forward and try to find some options, some suitable options to get this project completed as desired.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any questions?
I just about said aye.
Sometimes habits are hard to break.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in. Sorry we didn't have a
Thanks
bid
for your
us
work on
to look
this.
at.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to the discussion on tax exempt. Brian, you had an opportunity to look at some things and advise us.
I did have an opportunity to meet with our assessor and her chief, and I don't know how the commission wants us to go through each one to kind of see what our thoughts are. But I know that our assessor has the notes for each one. That's probably going to be the best way to go through each property.
Okay, Anita, if you just go through each one and give us
Okay, and I
suggestions.
think, I think Christy has all the originals downstairs. I don't have those with me.
Okay.
I just have copies from her email. The first one we looked at was Idaho Youth Ranch, and they applied for two different ones. They applied for their personal property, and they applied for their real property. The personal property, we can give them an exemption on, and I honestly don't think that they go over 250,000 anyway, so they would be free anyway. Not free, but exempt anyway through the personal property exemption. But on the real property, going over this with Brian, they're owned by an LLC, and we don't know what that LLC is, so no, their real property shouldn't be exempt.
So what was the last statement?
Tax.
Pardon? Pardon?
I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Oh, I just said that the real property is owned by an LLC, and so that part shouldn't be exempt.
Okay.
But the personal property can be, and they have two separate applications,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
And it looked like in that one, if I remember right, that the actual applicant was the Idaho Youth Ranch and not the LLC.
See.
So that application from the LLC isn't even in front of the commission, it's just from the Idaho Youth
Okay.
Ranch.
Mr. Chair, question, do you want to make a motion on these individually, since they're, like this one has some
Yes.
issues on it?
Yes, let's do, and then we're through with it as soon as we've talked about it.
Anita, will you give me the parcel number, or will you read the parcel number on those?
Yes, I'm sorry. And it is RPFMS 000800.
So, Mr. Chair, on the parcel, as noted by the assessor, I make a motion that we exempt the personal property and then do not grant the exemption for the real property.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next.
The next one I have is for Lava Community Church in Lava, and what we determined on that one, that's the one that has the parsonage next to it. And I'm gonna honestly, we're gonna probably give it, yes, we're gonna give it to them because we decided the parsonage. I may give them a call just so that I can see if they have rented that out for a portion of the year. I can prorate it out, but otherwise, it is a parsonage. It should have the exemption we've determined.
Okay.
Would you read the parcel number on that?
RPRLTHC 005000.
Mr. Chair, on the parcel, as noted by the assessor, I make a motion that we approve the exemption.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The Pocatello Art Center. So in going over this one, we did look them up with the Secretary of State. They are a nonprofit organization, so we determined that, and they could probably qualify, they've actually gone under 63602C, which is fraternal, benevolent, or charitable society. They did have a brief, they had some letters with their accompanying this that kind of explained what they do. We do tax the upstairs. They only get a 50% exemption because they lease out, or they rent out the upstairs to apartments. And so we also determined on this one that we were okay with it.
Will you read that parcel
Oh,
number?
and that one is, sorry, is RPPOC 273300.
Quick question on this. Historically, we've taxed the upstairs, but not the art thing,
Right,
and that's what you're asking to do?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, so if they're going under as a fraternal or benevolent or charitable LLC or corporation or anything like that, if they're actually using their property for the purpose of why it was set up, they can get a tax exemption. Now, anything.
That's
being
according to
used
the
for something
statute?
else, yes, is subject to taxation. There is a 3%, like if the total value, if they're using it for something different, the total value is 3% or less, it's still all exempt, but anything above 3% is subject to being
Okay,
taxed.
so understand the statute correctly, you have to use the facility for the purpose
For
designated.
which it is organized.
So
yes.
it can't be rented out, because I was wondering why you couldn't just rent it out and then if you're using that money to offset the cost of your educational or fraternal operations, but that's not permitted.
Right, like if you're renting it out to get extra income, and.
Even though it goes to the fraternal group,
Right.
that would
Well,
not be permitted.
Yeah, if it says if it's not, let me see. If they're getting a revenue and it's not directly related to the charitable purpose, that's where you look at it, and that's where the commission would have to decide. Is this revenue they're getting directly related to their charitable purpose, if it's a charitable organization?
But the money they're generating from the rent is being used for the charitable purpose, wouldn't it be? Which is just reducing the cost of whatever services they're providing, or?
But we don't know that. I mean, honestly, we don't have okay, they accumulate this money, they're putting it back into the to reduce cost of
Right.
painting or students, but we don't know that by what they said. We just know that they're renting that out as part of their facility.
Okay, but they're asking for this 50%.
Yes.
Okay.
And on these, I'd just like to make sure that we make notes on them so that when they come next year, that we
Yeah.
realize what we've said and accomplished. Motion?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we, on the parcel as identified by the assessor, that we grant the exemption on 50% of the property as requested.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Excuse me. The next one is BMH Incorporated doing business as Bingham Memorial Hospital, and the legal owner of this property is Pocatello Hospital LLC. And what we've kind of determined is BMH having the business, their personal property could be exempt, but the real property, no, because it's owned by Pocatello Hospital LLC. It's kind of what we've determined.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think it was, the application came from BMH, right?
Right, the application
So,
came
and not
from
from
BMH.
Pocatello Hospital. So that's kind of what we were deciding to, is like who was actually submitting the application and asking for it.
the owner of the property did not
Right.
submit the application.
Right.
Okay.
So do you have a list of
That
parcel
parcel
numbers?
number is RP CPP 086207.
Before you make a motion on that, let me just ask you a question here. So you said the personal could be exempt. You said that. The personal
Right,
could be
personal
exempt, but not
property.
the real property.
Right,
Why is the personal exempt?
because it's owned by Bingham Memorial. It's actually, the personal property is actually owned by Bingham Memorial within the entity.
And that's a nonprofit hospital?
Bingham Memorial is.
It's a
Okay.
county
All right,
hospital.
fair enough. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, fair enough.
And so the statute, and I think that's under D, right, 602D?
Yes.
I mean, first they have to qualify as a hospital under Idaho code, right? And then once they do that, and that means it has to be open for 24 hours, they have to have, satellite facilities, I mean, and then then you look at the property. So the real property is, if they qualify under that, is exempt, and the personal property is exempt, whether it's leased or owned, right? And so that's where we started doing the analysis. And then you gotta look at who actually is applying and who's not.
So, Mr. Chair, on the parcel identified by the assessor, I make a motion that we exempt the personal property, but do not exempt the real property.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the next one is Sagebrush Step Land Trust. And they're also they filed under 63602C as a fraternal, benevolent, or charitable society. And again, it goes back to what Brian said, are they using it for the purpose they set up to be? And they are. They're not using it it's just bare ground that they use as like I don't know if you want to call
Deer
it
habitat.
conservation, but yeah. And so, so that one we would recommend
Okay,
that we give.
do you have a parcel number?
It is RP CPP 142274, and I think there's multiple on this one. There's also another one that is RP, there's actually 4 here, I'm sorry. RP CPP 142277. And the next one is RPCPP 142278. And then the last one is RPCPP 142280.
Mr. Chair, on the parcels identified by the assessor, I make a motion that we grant the exemption as requested.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next one is Goodwill. And This one is owned by GP Partners, and it is being leased to Goodwill, and because it's being leased, we're recommending it be denied.
Parcel number?
Because it's, yeah,
Was that the youth ranch?
pardon?
Was that the youth ranch one?
No, this is Goodwill.
Goodwill.
Oh, Goodwill. And the applicant was Goodwill, right?
The
And
applicant
not-
is Goodwill.
Yeah.
And I don't believe they have any personal property either. That's over 250, yeah. So,
Parcel number?
parcel number is RP CPP 015400.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we deny the exemption on the parcel identified by the assessor.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And the next one is, and in fact, these next few are related to Bingham Memorial Hospital. But this one is, Crestwood Enterprises has actually filed it. The legal owner is Bingham Memorial Hospital for 37.5%. Pilster for-profit, 37.5%, and Fulmer for-profit, 25%. So they don't really have a whole lot on here, but it looks like they are wanting to apply for the portion that BMH owns, but Crestwood Enterprises, we're not sure if it's a nonprofit, because I don't believe it is, but we don't really have a lot of information on this, so with Brian and I kind of recommended that it be denied.
Okay, parcel numbers?
Parcel number is RP PP2 000100.
Mr. Chair, on the parcel identified by the assessor, I make a motion that we deny the application for exemption.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the next two are also Bingham Memorial Hospital, and they are owned by Bingham Memorial Hospital. So these two are okay. But I'm trying to see. One might be double. I don't think so. Okay, it's RP FMS 000300 and RP GOP 000700.
Mr. Chair, on the parcels identified by the assessor, I make a motion that we accept and approve the application for exemption.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pardon?
Aye.
Okay, this one, in fact, we have two that kind of go together here. We have an application for two entities. Okay. They are over in the Garrett Way area, and the person applying for this application is Dales Incorporated, and they own the ground, but they lease out to a portion of their building for storage for Idaho State University and for Idaho Public Television. And I'm going to let Brian kind of explain this one a little better than I can about actually being the storage part.
Oh, and I mean, we were just looking at the exemption they wanted, and they put it under I believe, the school or education. And so I guess that's up to the interpretation of the commission, but for what we could see in the application, they were storing equipment, right, for both ISU and Idaho Public Television. And again, the determination is that going to be under the really for educational purposes or not exemption?
They're renting them out. They're getting funds to rent a property out. It's just like the guy that had the copier or whatever that wanted to me, this is the same thing.
Right.
So this is not a nonprofit that owns the land? owns
No,
this, right?
no, the organization that owns it is not nonprofit.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have your parcel numbers?
That RP CPP 053001 And where's the other one? They're both that parcel number, because they're
Okay.
both in that same entity. That's why I
And
can't
and
find
Mr.
another
Chair, if I could
parcel.
add one thing to it, just to make sure the commission's fully informed when you're doing your analysis on it. There is one part, this is under 602E, I believe, right?
Yes.
On E. It says the following property is exempt from taxation. All property used exclusively for nonprofit school or educational purposes. Property used for charter school purposes and all property from which no profit is derived and which is held or used exclusively for endowment, building, or maintenance purposes of schools or educational institutions. And then if the property is primarily for nonprofit school purposes or charter school purposes, or for business purposes from which a revenue is derived, which revenue is not related to the educational purpose for which the nonprofit school or charter school exists, the assessor will determine the value of the entire property and of the part used for nonprofit school purposes or charter school purposes, and of the part used for such unrelated business purposes, the portion of the building used for nonprofit school purposes or charter school purposes or for business and administration of the nonprofit school or charter school shall be exempt from taxation. And then the third part just talks about state college and state university. So I just wanted to make sure you had an idea of what the statute was saying there before you made a decision. So.
They can appeal.
So, Mr. Chair, on the parcel identified by the assessor, I make a motion that we deny their application as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I have two left. The second to the last one is Empower Humanity, also known as the Levitt Center. And I didn't make any notes on this. I was too in a hurry to get down here. So this is the Levitt Center. They're claiming under, they're filing under 602E as saying they are using it for educational purposes. There is a house next door that we do tax because they're not using that as such. And so,
Well, with what Brian just read there, it is an educational, they do offer scholarships, they do. So I'd keep it the same way that we are. That's-
Good with
we
that.
tax the house because it isn't part of it. I mean, it's just like the art center,
okay.
but we let the school go tax-free.
And last
Do
but
you have a
not,
parcel number on that one?
oh, I'm sorry. I'm moving on. RPPOC 110400.
And that is just the school itself, that is not?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
just school.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion on the parcel identified by the assessor that we...
That's actually, the house and the school are on the same
That's
parcel.
right, yes.
Okay,
And
so, Mr. Chair, I make a motion on the parcel identified by the assessor that we deny the application for the house on this parcel, but approve the application for the school that is on the property.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, last but not least is Portland Health Trust. And there are several applications here. There's Portland Health Trust and there's quite a few parcel numbers. The legal owner of the property is PHT. Well, there's several of them. This one is owned by PHT 1001 North 7th LLC. This one is owned by a PHT Center Street LLC. There's several of them, but they're all to do with Portland Health Trust. And then there are some that I believe, yeah, they're all to do with Portland Health Trust, and the legal owner being Pocatello Hospital LLC on some of them. I mean, they're all mixed up. As, a lot of them are personal property, and I wish I could give you more information on this, but I know that years ago, there was a 23% exemption put on it, years and years ago. I thought we would have the contract in our office, and I can't find it anywhere.
23% exemption was because that's what Bannock County owned, right?
Seem appropriate.
That's what, when we originally sold that, yes, yes, it is true.
That's been a question.
And that's what I understand, is that 23% is what Bannock County owns out of that, still involved.
Right. I'd have to defer to the assessor on.
And that's kind of what I understand too, but like I said, I don't know all the legal entities at all. This is yeah.
So on all these properties, are they asking for a full exemption or a 23% exemption?
Okay, so that's some of my problem, because I haven't, I'll be honest, I haven't looked into all of them. All the personal properties, which would be the equipment or whatever's in their buildings, though, they're asking for that 23%, yes. On the RPPOCs, did you look at all these? I thought you did.
Well, there's a,
I have a question here. This is a for-profit hospital,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes, the one on the hill is.
It's not exempt like Bingham.
Yeah, so based off the application, what the commission's gonna have to determine, because I think all of the properties were under C, correct? For
Right.
charitable organizations, benevolent organizations, fraternal
Yes,
organizations.
I believe that's what they
So,
did.
one is it
Yeah.
a fraternal, benevolent, or charitable organization? And number two is the use being used exclusively for the purpose of which the organization was set up? You know, and if they're being used for other purposes, then the analysis would be how much of it is being used for other purposes, and then you'd have to prorate the assessment, as we've discussed.
Isn't
So
there a
that's the
separate,
determination that's gonna have to be made by the commission off the information they have in their application.
I thought there was a separate statute that applied to hospitals.
But I think they applied under C and not under D, which is the hospitals,
did.
if I'm right. If I remember.
They did, because PHT, Portnoy Health Trust, on the majority, it's not on all of these, but they are the ones applying for this.
And that's the key there.
Right.
It's not the hospital. It's Portnoy Health Trust, which is not the hospital. They're separate entity, separate organization. So they're not a hospital. So that's why they apply under this, because when this was all set up and we did away with the county hospital, they created this Portnoy Health Trust, and monies were put into that, and it honestly is not the hospital.
Correct.
And so,
Because the hospital's a for-profit entity.
so I guess the question is just what you just said. Are they a charitable organization, a fraternity, that
Benevolent, yeah.
that we give them credit for that? Or do we say, no, we don't feel like that's the way it is?
Well, it's a two-part. One, are they, right? And number two is then, is the property being used for the purpose of which the organization was organized?
But part of the question, wouldn't it be who's the owner of the property?
Yep. Well, it'd be one if
So the owner is the for-profit hospital, right?
if the property belongs to, well, the exemption belongs to, if the property belongs to any fraternal, benevolent, or charitable LLC, corporation, or society, right? And then then it's not just if they're a charitable or benevolent or fraternal LLC or corporation or society, but then what's the use of the property? And it's the use for what's organized, so that's the two-part test.
Sure, but I haven't even got past the part of who owns it.
Well, there are some of the parcels are owned by an LLC, for-profit.
Right.
And some are owned by the health trust.
Some are owned by the health trust? I didn't hear any, you say once that the health trust owned any of these.
They have, well, the Portnoy Health Trust, they have different LLCs under them, and so it's like Portnoy Health Trust, Center Street Ortho LLC, it's Portnoy Health Trust, North Seventh LLC, so they've got several, and this one is Portnoy Health Trust and Medical at Northgate LLC, so that's that new complex up there. This one is Portland Health Trust Real Estate Holdings. This one is Pocatello Health Services. This one, and these are the owners. Pocatello Hospital LLC and Pocatello Hospital LLC.
Are these all for profit?
I can't tell
That's
you
what it
that.
sounds like when you keep saying LLC, all these LLCs.
Board Health Trust is not actually a for-profit. I mean,
Portland Health Trust,
Trust.
maybe.
but anything that the hospital owns should be taxed.
Well, I know they provided a statement to the properties, that the commission should have that. And so that's where the commission can look at the application, look at their statement, and then make a determination on if they think a tax exemption is appropriate or not.
And we went through this all last year with these properties. The ortho deal, we taxed it because it's not, I mean, the health trust owns it, but it's not for the purpose of what the health trust was created for. Purpose for the health trust was to build monies so they could help the community however they felt like it, you know, which to me is a gray area. But anything with the hospital is a for-profit. But is that where the 26% that Bannock County owned comes in? Are they asking for a full exemption or just a 26% exemption?
23%.
23?
I think so.
23%?
I think it varies depending on parcel. We've got two lists here, one that shows that the properties are owned 100% by Portland Health Trust, and then we've got a list where there's the PHT's basically got a 23% interest in it. So it varies.
Yeah. This is just, yeah.
And I'll tell you, we've gone over this for the last couple of years. I'm at the point right now that we just don't exempt any of it and let them appeal to us or to the courts and solve it once and for all.
That sounds good to me.
Even the 23%.
I would say, where do we see the benefit of the 23%?
Well, I don't know, I'm just saying that I know. It was-
I like Commissioner Moser's idea. Just
I
deny it.
think it's time just to.
This is pretty
settle this.
complicated.
So,
Brian?
And I'm not trying to push one way or the other, I'm just stating under C where it's at with any application that we get for an exemption. I mean, if they are determined to be a fraternal, benevolent, or charitable LLC corporation society, and their property is being used for the purpose of which they are organized, then the statute does say they are entitled to an exemption. So I just want, I know I'm speaking in circles here, but just want to make sure.
What I
the
want to
commission
know
understands.
is,
Yeah.
what was the purpose you was organized? I don't know. From their application, I don't know. So you have the opportunity to come, meet with us, and tell us, why was you organized? Are you fulfilling that on this piece of property? That's the way I look at it right now.
so, Mr. Chair, on the parcels that will be identified, because there are numerous.
There are numerous, and I can give Nancy a list if you
So
want me to.
on the parcels identified and provided to the record, I make a motion, we deny the application for exemption.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,